Welcome back to another edition of the Saturday to Sunday Football Podcast. I am Paul Perdichizzi, and thank you for joining me. As always, the calendar has shifted to April. We are officially in the draft month. We are weeks away from the NFL draft, 3 weeks to be exact. Here at Saturday to Sunday, we continue to cover things wire to wire, and tonight we conclude our TierBuster Series, discussing our 2025 wide receiver and tight end rankings and tiers. We will go through all of the wide receivers first, share out what constitutes our tiers, what prospects are in those tiers, talk about the prospects, talk about the players a little bit, conclude the wide receivers by talking about who, as I am going to continue to be watching film right up until the week of the NFL draft. Is there anybody that, as I watch a little bit more film, maybe can make a last-minute slight jump up to who are at the top of one tier, maybe into the bottom of another tier? And then we will go through and do the exact same thing for the tight ends as well. Share what constitutes our exclusive S2S tiers at the tight end position, share our tight end tiers and rankings, talk about many of the prospects, and again, talk about any prospects that maybe could be small tier jumpers from the top of one tier to the bottom of the tier above it as well. If you have missed the previous two episodes, we did the quarterback tiers. That was episode 674. And then last episode was the wide receiver tiers. That was episode 675. And now we conclude the series with the wide receivers and the tight ends. So let's get right into it. And let's start with what first constitutes our tier one of wide receivers. Remember, these are exclusive tiers to Saturday to Sunday. We made these tiers up that constitutes our film analysis, our draft projection, where we value them. Also, a fantasy dynasty spin in terms of where we would think they should be going or be looked at in terms of dynasty rookie drafts, and then put that all together into our exclusive tiers. So, tier one wide receivers. We think these are potential round one selections in the NFL draft. We think they're round one dynasty rookie picks in just about any setting, should be an immediate starter at the next level in 2 or 3 wide receiver sets. Now, we understand inside of that tier, sometimes you could have guys who could be true alpha number one wide receivers. Like last year, we had 3 guys, right, who were that tier 1A almost, like exclusive, number one, worthy of going top 10. It's hard to, there's different levels inside of tier one. We kind of constitute this as all guys that we think are potential round one selections in our eyes, round one dynasty rookie picks. But I'll talk about relative to last year, relative to what I think they could be at the next level. If we take this to my tiers, my tier one is made up of 4 names. It's Travis Hunter out of Colorado, who I'm also tiering and ranking as a wide receiver. It's Tedoroa McMillan out of Arizona. It's Luther Burden out of Missouri. And it's Matthew Golden out of Texas. Now, let's start. If we're talking wide receiver prospects in my tier one, who could be alpha, true number one wide receivers, top 10 worthy, there's only one in this draft class, and that's the unicorn in Travis Hunter. If we evaluate him strictly as a wide receiver, the only 2 prospects at the wide receiver position since I've been doing Saturday to Sunday that I would have a higher grade on is Marvin Harrison last year, junior, and Malik Neighbors. I think Travis Hunter as a wide receiver prospect is better than Devonta Smith. I think he's better than Jalen Waddle. I think he's better than the class when we had like Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers and those and every other evaluation that I've done for wide receivers since Saturday to Sunday started. I think Travis Hunter would be 3rd among all those wide receivers. That's how special of a prospect he is. The athleticism, the speed, the movement skills are special. But then his trait, his best calling card, we are not talking about good or very good or even great. We're talking elite to rare, special ball skills, body control, ability to adjust, the ability to go up and get it. We're not talking about a guy who's got great size. It's average size. Frame is average at best. But we're talking about a guy, the hand-eye coordination, the ball skills, the body control. It is special. And this is while he was also playing full-time cornerback at the same time. So to me, Travis Hunter sits clear in this tier far and away the only guy I consider worthy of being a top 10 pick in this class. I mean, a top 10 wide receiver. Obviously, I think he's one of the two best players. To me, he is the best player in this draft class, right up there with Cam Ward and Abdul Carter. Take the quarterback aspect out of it. Travis Hunter, to me, is the best player in this draft class. The other guys, Tedero McMillan, Luther Burden, and Matthew Golden, to me, they all make up guys that I think are like in that 20 to 32 range. I see this class very similarly to the year that we saw Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, who I wasn't that high on. I see this other trio here in my tier one of McMillan, Burden, and Golden as very comparable to that draft class. None of these guys, to me, profile as number one wide receivers in the NFL. They profile as number two wide receivers. Tedero McMillan, while he's not a blazer, I think he's very fluid. His movement skills are very smooth. He's got ideal size, frame. We know he's got ball control, ball skills, body control, ability to adjust, contort. His highlight reel of plays is special. I understand a lot of people have compared him to Drake London, and I said stylistically, size and frame, I get it. But I do think Drake London was a much different player at the catch point. The play strength, the physicality, creating the late separation with that toughness, winning contested catches. I don't think that's an area where Tedero McMillan is like, that's his calling card. To me, McMillan has got a little bit more fluidity, a little bit more smoothness to his game. I think he's a better weapon after the catch than a guy like Drake London, but I don't see the ceiling or the high-end upside of Drake London in Tedero McMillan. I think he's a good player. I think he could be a great number two for a team. Not sure he could be the focal point of a passing offense, even though he'd probably be drafted like that. I think he'd be better suited as like a number two. I wish I would see him play up to his measurements a little bit more at the catch point, but there's a lot to like about his game for players who have big-time production in college and has the size, frame, ball skills, body control, fluidity to be my number one wide receiver in this class, not named Travis Hunter, especially if people are classifying Hunter as a cornerback. Luther Burden, the third, reminds me a lot of DJ Moore. His 2023 film, way better than his 2024 film. Missouri had a lot of issues on the offense, but I think Burden is a three-tier player in terms of, I think he can win in the short to intermediate. I think he can win in the short range. You can do manufactured touch stuff, screens, quick slants, end the rounds, jet sweeps to get him the ball. I think he could win in the intermediate range, but I also think he has the speed to win vertically as well. We didn't see as much of the full package of him this year, but I think it's in the arsenal. If you go back to his 2023 film, I think it's besides Travis Hunter, his Luther Burden's 2023 film, I think, is the best film of any wide receiver in this draft class, not named Travis Hunter. And if he, going into last summer, Luther Burden was ahead for me of Tedero McMillan. If he had the same season that he had in 2023, in 2024, Luther Burden would be my clear wide receiver two in this draft class behind Travis Hunter, and he'd be ahead of Tedero McMillan. I think his upside and his ceiling is superior to Tedero McMillan, but there are some question marks. There's some stuff I don't want to get into in terms of there's stuff out there about his character and stuff. Again, I have absolutely no privy or inside information, so we'll see if that in any way hurts his draft stock at all. But on the football field, he reminds me a lot of DJ Moore, a lot of versatility to his game, can win in a variety of ways, has the speed, has the route running chops. I think that's still an area he can refine a little bit. I think he won with more athleticism than refined route running at the next level, but I do think he creates separation, and he's unbelievable dynamic player with the ball in his hands after the catch as well. And then my other tier one is Matthew Golden out of Texas. A last second half of the year really took off. But when you watch him play, and if you try to project that out, just the traits, understanding he doesn't have a lot, he doesn't have a track record, but he tested out even better. I don't think he has 4.29 football speed, but that's what he tested out. So that's the number on the back of it, his football card. But you watch him, he can win in the intermediate. He can win vertically down the field. I think for a player his size, he's got really good ball skills at the catch point, ability to adjust and contort his body. He can win, he can go up and high point it. He's a good route runner. I think as he continues to refine his game, he could become a great route runner and create great separators. So there's a lot to like about Matthew Golden. I do recognize he doesn't have nearly as much of a sample size as the other players in this class, but in a class that's kind of questionable in terms of the high-end talents, I do think he's worthy of going somewhere in late round one. If we take this to my tier 2 of wide receivers, those are guys that I think are round 2 to somewhere in the middle of round 3 in terms of the NFL draft. These are guys I think are lock day 2 picks. Would have a very hard time seeing these guys fall to day 3. In dynasty rookie drafts, we're talking late round 1 to late round 2 dynasty rookie picks, complementary to starting wide receiver that should get immediate snaps in 3 wide receiver sets, should become a clear starter during their rookie season or by year 2. If we look at my tier 2 of wide receivers, it's pretty depth. So I don't think it's a top heavy wide receiver class, but I do think it's another strong class in terms of its depth. I don't think all of these guys are going to go somewhere from round 2 to middle of round 3, but that's where I would have their grade range right now. In this tier is Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, Jalen Noel out of Iowa State, Jalen Royals out of Utah State, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, Jack Bash out of TCU, Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, Kyle Williams out of Washington State, Isaiah Bond out of Texas, and Savion Williams out of TCU. Again, I could easily divvy up this tier of guys who I think are early to mid-round 2 and then mid-round 2 to mid-round 3. But we can kind of get into that narrative. I'll kind of share my thoughts on that as I'm talking about these guys. Emeka Egbuka, he's the prototypical, very good at everything, not elite or great at any one particular thing, but he's very smooth. He's got inside-outside versatility. I think he's better in the slot. He's a good route runner. He's got an athleticism and speed, or it's not great, but it's very good. I love the understanding of route concepts to creating the separation. I think he's a very smart player. I think he could help after the catch. He can win in all 3 levels of the field. A very guy who's going to be a rock-solid number 2 wide receiver at the next level. If he sneaks into the back end of round 1, I could see it. If he falls to the early portion of round 2, I do think he will be called in the top 40 picks, though. So this is a guy who's on the cusp of that tier 1. I just didn't think in this draft class, I didn't see 5 tier 1 wide receivers, so I kind of found a little bit of a differentiation. I think Golden's ceiling is a little bit higher than Egbuka, but I think Egbuka's floor is definitely higher than Matthew Golden's, who had a lot less track record of production in college. Jalen Noel out of Iowa State, he's one of my guys this draft class. I love him in terms of the speed, the athleticism. He has inside-outside versatility. He's going to get penciled in as a vertical slot, but I think he can win on the outside. He can play that flanker position, and you could do a lot of different things with him. He reminds me so much of Ladd McConkey, who I loved from last year's draft class. We saw the success of Ladd McConkey this past year. I think that could be Jalen Noel this year. He's got some drops that he's got to clean up a little bit, but the route running, the separation, the ability to win vertically for a guy his size, he'll go up and get it. He's got really good body control and ball skills at the catch point. He can adjust his body. Jalen Noel is a guy that I think the trajectory is still going upward. He'd be a guy that, especially if he falls a little bit, I was very surprised in Bob McGinn's recent wide receiver article that he had Jalen Noel way down the wide receiver ranks from talking to the scouts and putting that article together. He had a round 3, round 4 grade on him based on talking to the scouts. That would stun me if he doesn't go in round 2, especially if he doesn't go in the early portion of round 3. If he's there late round 3 or into round 4, I think a team's going to get an absolute steal. He has dominated the pre-draft process. He looked great at the Senior Bowl, great combine. Jalen Noel's stock is going up. I'm in completely on him. I'm surprised that some of the narrative out there is that maybe scouts aren't as into him as I think Draft Twitter and myself is. Jalen Royals out of Utah State, another guy I've been in on since the summer. Another guy who's really good at everything, very similar to Egbuka. He's got inside-outside versatility. He can win vertically. He can win the short to intermediate. He's got route running ability. He's got separation ability. But what I like about Jalen Royals is he's got some play strength and toughness to his game. He's got some grit to his game. He'll go up at the catch point and show that play strength and physicality and win vertically down the field against guys bigger than him. So I like Jalen Royals. He reminds me of a guy who other people are going to have some more flashier players above him. I rather have Royals, who I think is a guy who could immediately come in and be a contributor with high upside too, with the athleticism as well that he possesses. So I very much like Jalen Royals. Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, really good athleticism, tested well at the combine. I think he's got some inside versatility. You can use him as a big slot. You can use him on the outside. He can get vertically, the body control, the ball skills, the ability to adjust. I do think there's some long speed concerns. I do think there's some separation concerns. But again, over time, I usually gravitate towards the smaller, faster, shiftier guys. I think Higgins is good getting off the press. I think he's got good handwork get in his releases. And there's aspects of his game that I do really like: his ball control, his ball skills and body control, his ability to trust. He's got great length, great catch radius. So there's aspects of Higgins' game is like, even though he doesn't profile as guys that I usually gravitate towards when I'm in a tier. Jack Bech out of TCU, you want a rock solid number 2 wide receiver for a decade? I think that could be Jack Bech. The play strength, the toughness, the physicality, the route running chops, really good after the catch. There's so many times you watch his highlights, you watch his film, so many times that he's making things happen after the catch. He's not just a possession receiver and fall down. I think you could do a lot of different things with him. To me, all those guys I just talked about, Igbuka, Knoll, Royals, Higgins, and Bech, those would be my guys that I think should go somewhere in round 2 of the NFL draft. But the other guys that make up my tier 2 here are guys that I would think in the early to mid portion of round 3. I'll put Trey Harris there. Trey Harris fits the prototype. He's one of the true X wide receivers in this draft class. I do think there's some speed and separation concerns with him as well, but I think I like the play strength, physicality he possesses. He can win at the catch point. He creates late separation. There's aspects of Trey Harris's game. It's just so hard to evaluate him in that Ole Miss scheme. Leaves so much to be unknown in terms of how it's going to translate. So I'm a little bit reserved with my ranking on him. Kyle Williams, probably not even going to go in on day 2, possibly, if you see what's out there, but he does have some supporters out there. All he does is get open. The separation ability, the route running chops, the big play ability. He can create separation in the short to intermediate after the catch. He can win vertically down the field. There's a lot to like about Washington State's Kyle Williams. Isaiah Bond out of Texas. Once upon a time, I expected him to be much higher on this ranks. Didn't have nearly the year we expected when he transferred from Alabama to Texas, especially once Matthew Golden emerged. But there's still aspects of Isaiah Bond that I'm very intrigued with. He's got the vertical speed. He's got the ability. He's got ball skills and body control, especially winning vertically. He can, in terms of the impact he can make, the tactical value he can bring. I think Bond is some untapped upside there. So I think by the early to mid portion of round 3, I think Isaiah Bond is very much worth an investment at that point. Savion Williams, this is going to be a test case because part running back, part wide receiver. There's tons to be concerned about in his wide receiver tape. Route nuance, route refinement, understanding of route concepts, some drop issues. But then you watch this guy's highlight reel, and there's at times that he looks like he could be the best wide receiver in the class, not named Travis Hunter, with the athleticism, the speed, the ball skills, the body control at times, like the acrobatic plays that he can make, how much of a weapon he could be in the open field with his speed and acceleration, but also his play strength. But he's just so raw. But I think when you get to that early to mid portion of round 3, I'd be willing to take the investment and take the upside. There's a lot of comps out there to a guy like Cordell Patterson. I think his wide receiver film is a little bit better than what we saw of Patterson coming out, but I understand the same idea. He's more athlete than refined player at a certain position like wide receiver. But to me, there's a lot of different things you can do with him. And by the time the 3rd round rolls around, I'm willing to look for a potential difference maker on offense. And Savion Williams, I think, fits that profile for me. If we take this to my 3rd tier is made up of late round 3 through round 4 selections in the NFL draft. These are late round 2 to late round 3 dynasty rookie picks. These players possess at least one starter level trait, but have lacked consistency and execution in certain areas of their game. Keyword for this tier is potential, which means some development is needed. Have a chance to develop into a top 3 wide receiver in an offense down the line. The wide receivers that are in this tier for me: Torrey Hunter out of Colorado State, Alec Iomanner out of Stanford, Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee, Tej Johnson out of Oregon, Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech, Ty Felton out of Maryland, Xavier Restrepo out of Miami, Dominic Lovett out of Georgia, and Chimere Dike out of Florida. Let me go through it. This tier's got a lot of different stylistically wide receivers. Torrey Horton, you want a rock-solid number 3 wide receiver for the next 6 to 8 years? I think that could be Torrey Horton. He could even maybe be your number 2 starting wide receiver. I don't know if there's a lot of upside there, but very reliable, good athlete, good route runner, got good hands. He's going to probably go somewhere in the mid to late portion of round 3 due to his reliability, due to his production. and you can immediately expect him to be a valuable piece of your offense as a third wide receiver at the next level. Alec Iomanner and Dante Thornton Jr. are two wild cards for me in this draft class because their ceiling and upside is much higher than players who should go in the mid round 3 to somewhere on round 4. And I do think Iomanner has a chance to go in the back end of round 3. I think Dante Thornton Jr. is definitely probably going in round 4. Iomanner got the size, got the frame, got the speed and athleticism. The ball skills are very up and down. He can make the acrobatic catch. His highlight reel, like I said about Savion Williams, is special when you just look at that. But the nuance, the route refining, some of that is still something that is developing as a player. Obviously, the Stanford offense did not help him a lot. So I think Iomanner deserves to go in round 3. I just think there's more development there needed than maybe some people give credit. Some people think. Some people, I think, have him much higher than this on their ranks, and I understand why. I'm a little bit more reserved. I have Savion Williams in the tier ahead because he's still new to the position. To me, there's still more upside with Savion Williams because he's still learning the position. Iomanner is a guy who I think there's still development there that can raise to another level, but it's not as unknown yet as a guy like Savion Williams. Dante Thornton Jr., if you're looking for DK Metcalf light, and that's what I'll kind of classify him as, size, frame, athleticism, you're talking verticals, go routes, quick slants, get him the ball in his hands, make big plays. Some people are going to say he's very similar to Jalen Hyatt. I get that from the same team. And I liked Hyatt coming out, but the frame in which they possess, I think Thornton's more physical stature in terms of that, and that's going to help him. I think that's an area where Jalen Hyatt has struggled with getting off of press and stuff like that. I think Thornton's got a little bit more in terms of the size and physicality to maybe do that. Then we got our slot guys, and they come all the next 5 guys are all slot guys in different ways, shape, or form. We got Tej Johnson, who obviously didn't test that well, but all he does is create separation and get open. Obviously, he's a rare outlier in terms of how small he is, in terms of his weight, but all he did was get open at the Senior Bowl. All he did was get open at Oregon. I think whether it's late round 3 to somewhere in round 4 because of the outlier measurements in terms of the weight, I think he could be a guy that could be a really unique weapon as a third wide receiver in the slot. But if you worried about the outlier stuff in terms of the weight, I think you could pivot to Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech. While he doesn't have the gaudy production of Tej Johnson, he's got big playability. He tested out as an elite athlete. Virginia Tech's pass offense left a lot to be desired. He can win vertically down the field and in a variety of ways. I'm a big Jalen Lane fan. He's another one of my guys in this draft class. The next guy, Ty Felton out of Maryland, another guy I'm intrigued with, probably have him higher in most people's ranks. To me, he's a vertical slot, but he's got more size to his game, not as small as a guy like Tej Johnson or Jalen Lane or Restrepo. But to me, Felton reminds me a lot of a guy like Darnell Mooney, and that's the kind of player I think Ty Felton could be. Darnell Mooney, I think, was a round 3 or round 4 selection. I don't think Ty Felton's going top 100, so I think somewhere on round 4 is an intriguing spot for a guy like Ty Felton. The explosiveness, the speed that he brings in terms of his wide receiver ability, I think is something that teams will look for. Restrepo, I know the pro day didn't go well. I still don't see that slow on tape. So I'm going to still think that he could be a really reliable starting slot wide receiver that just gets open. We saw Hunter Renfrow have a very good career in the NFL. I think Restrepo, other guys like that, maybe he falls to round 5. I think I'd still be willing to take a chance on him somewhere late round 4 if you're looking for a slot-only player. Dominic Lovett out of Georgia, I don't think he's getting a lot of buzz, but I think Lovett is a very intriguing player, similar to Jalen Lane. He's got explosiveness. He's a little bit undersized, but he's a good athlete. He's going to be a guy who's exclusively in the slot, but I think you could do stuff in the short to intermediate, jet sweeps, and the rounds, but he could also get vertically down the field. He's got that big playability. And then Chimere Dike out of Florida just sneaks in this tier because I do like him. I just really dug into him over the last couple of weeks in depth, and I came away with liking a lot of aspects of his game. And to me, he's a guy that's slightly on the rise in terms of his upside and his ceiling. So that is somebody that I kind of wanted to say, you know what? He might not go to round 5, but there's a lot to like about DK's game in terms of what he brings to the table. The athleticism is great, the speed, the burst. He win vertically. He's got ball skills and body control. He's got some good play strength and physicality. There's a lot to like. I think he's a depth outside wide receiver, but he's got some upside. Maybe he can develop into a number 3, if not definitely a quality number 4, and bring some value as that vertical receiver as well. If we keep this going and now go to tier 4 of my wide receivers, these are round 5 or round 6 selections in the NFL draft. We're talking late round 3 here. Round 5 or round 6 here in terms of the NFL draft. Late round 3 to round 5 dynasty rookie picks. We're talking role players or specialists here. These players will provide depth for a franchise, and they may get a chance at significant snaps should a starter falter. Could play in 4 wide sets consistently down the line with some development. Guys that are in my tier 4 here at the wide receiver position is very deep. There's a lot of names I like in here as well. Elijah Badger out of Florida, Nick Nash out of San Jose State, Pat Bryant out of Illinois, Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas, Corey Brooks out of Louisville, Brew McCoy out of Tennessee, Jimmy Horn out of Colorado, Daquan Felton out of Virginia Tech, Isaiah Nayer out of Nebraska, Samuel Brown out of Miami, Ricky White out of UNLV, Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn, and LeJohntay Webster out of Colorado. Not going to go through every name in tier 4 or tier 5, but a couple guys that I do want to point out that are intriguing, especially towards the top of this tier. The first one I want to get into is Elijah Badger out of Florida. Only got average size and frame, but he's got good athleticism, movement skills. He's got yak ability, speed, and burst. He's got good ball skills and body control. He shows the ability to adjust. He's got really dynamic return skills as well. So I'm intrigued by Elijah Badger somewhere in that round 5, round 6 range. Pat Bryant, I know some people might be a little bit higher on him. He's only got average athleticism, movement skills, and speed, but I like his ability. He's a long stepper. He can get vertical down the field, and then he's got the catch radius, the length to go up and win at contested catches. I like that aspect of his game. Brew McCoy, I feel like he's been in college forever. Once upon a time, big recruit. He's got good size and frame, good athleticism. He's got very good play strength, physicality, body control, create some late separation at the catch point. I think he's a good, nice complementary outside wide receiver. Ja'Cory Brooks, once upon a time, former big-time recruit to Alabama. Only probably average to above average athleticism in terms of his time stuff, but I think his play speed is a little bit faster. I think he's got good length, body control, and ball skills, the ability to adjust at the catch point to win contested catches. I like Jimmy Horn out of Colorado. I know the stats weren't anything to write home about this year. So he's an undersized depth slot wide receiver, but I've got very good athleticism, speed, movement skills, burst and acceleration to win vertically. He's got route running chops. He can create separation, and he can do stuff after the catch as well. I'm a fan of Jimmy Horn somewhere on round 5 or round 6. Nick Nash, I think, is a really intriguing player somewhere on day 3. Former quarterback turned wide receiver, like 100, and I think it was 16 catches this year. The athleticism and movement skills, I think, are only average, but he's got really good leaping ability. He can contort his body. He's got ball skills. He's got body control. He's got good play strength, very good competitiveness. I think his role is probably going to be as a slot wide receiver at the next level, but he's still new and learning the position. So there's a lot of upside to his game as well. Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas. Very good size and frame, tested out really well. He's a very good athlete. He's got the burst to get vertical from the slot. He's got good length, play strength, ball skills, and body control. He can adjust to the football. Intrigued by him somewhere on day 3. Isaiah Nayer out of Nebraska. The pass offense really faltered after the beginning of the season. But Nayer's an interesting player. Very good at athleticism, movement skills, agility, separation ability, and speed, burst, and acceleration. He's got great length and catch radius. To me, there's a lot of development there, but there's some intriguing traits there for Nayer as an outside vertical wide receiver. Sam Brown, I was really excited when he transferred from Houston to Miami. I thought he was going to be the guy that really morphed into Cam Ward's one of his main go-to guys. He tested, the year didn't go as well, but the pre-draft process has been strong for him. Really tested well at the combine. He's got some big-time vertical speed to be a guy that can bring that aspect to a wide receiver depth chart. So those are the guys that I think probably in that tier that are most intriguing for me. Daquan Felton this past year missed a lot of time due to injuries, but there's a lot to like about his game in terms of the size, the frame, and the athleticism as well. I think he could be a surprise guy that goes maybe even in round 4, and I don't think a lot of people are pegging him there. I have him more in my round 5, round 6 range, but I think Felton out of Virginia Tech, Daquan Felton, could be a guy that maybe surprises people and goes even a little bit earlier than expected. If we take this to my final wide receiver tier, and that is tier number 5, these are prospects that I think are late round or UDFA selection. So these are guys that maybe they go round 7 or priority free agents In dynasty rookie drafts, these are late round guys, stashed on taxi squads or on a watch list, developmental wide receiver, or a guy that can round out a depth chart as maybe your number 5 wide receiver or practice squad wide receiver that works their way up. The wide receivers that I have in this tier who I think could be round 7 or high priority free agents: Arian Smith out of Georgia, big time speed, very not refined as a wide receiver, but I could see a team drafting him somewhere late in the draft due to that big time athleticism and speed. Jordan Watkins out of Ole Miss, another guy tested out really well at the combine, could see him sneak in at the end of the draft. Kobe Hudson out of UCF, Trayshawn Holden out of Oregon, Antoine Juice Wells out of Ole Miss. Once upon a time, he looked like a day 2 guy, and then injuries kind of have really hampered his career. Theo Weiss out of Missouri, another guy, good ball control, ball skills, body control, can win vertically down the field with late separation. He's bounced around a little bit, but I think he's a guy that could be a solid number 5 wide receiver. I could see him maybe even going in round 6. Maybe he should be a little bit higher, but Weiss is a guy that we've been talking about for a long time here. Efton Chisholm III out of Eastern Washington. He was at the Shrine Bowl. All he did was get open anytime you saw anything about practices of him. So he's an interesting small school player. Caden Prater out of Maryland. Tough physical play strength. Late separator in terms of that. Anthony Armstrong out of Arkansas. Daniel Jackson out of Minnesota. Rock Taylor out of Memphis. Kanata Mumfield out of Pittsburgh. Jackson Meeks out of Syracuse. Bew Collins out of Notre Dame, Jacoby George out of Miami, Josh Kelly out of Texas Tech, Will Shepard out of Colorado, Moose Muhammad III out of Texas A&M. Those are the guys that make up my tier 5. Most of those guys, because I have number of wide receivers that I have ranked here goes all the way down to 54. I would expect maybe like 35 or so get drafted, maybe even a little bit less. If 35 wide receivers got drafted, and let's just say it was literally right off my ranks, every single guy that I just ranked in tier 5 would not even get drafted. Arian Smith, Jordan Watkins, Kobe Hudson. So all these guys are guys that are talking, maybe they go round 7, maybe they're if not, they're priority free agents. I'm sure some of even my tier 4 guys who I have graded as round 5, round 6 prospects, some of those guys might not even get drafted because of the volume of wide receivers that we constantly have every single year. If we're talking about guys who could be tier jumpers, if I have any tier movement over the next 3 weeks as I finalize everything, the only 2 guys that I would maybe classify as guys who could jump into tier 1 is Igbuka or Jalen Noel. Igbuka is right on the cusp, and Noel, every time I watch him, I just like him more and more. There's so much about his game that I like. But right now I have those guys as early round 2 grades. But those are the guys that would be next as guys who could possibly jump up into my tier 1. If we're talking about tier 3 wide receivers who could maybe make the jump into be the bottom of my tier 2, it's definitely Torrey Horton out of Colorado State and Alec Iomanner out of Stanford. I could easily make the case that if I have Savion Williams at the end of my tier 2, Alec Iomanner belongs there too. A lot of upside. You just look at their highlight reels. They look like elite wide receivers. Obviously, there's more to it than that. So if I have Savion Williams in tier 2, I could make the case that Alec Iomanner belongs there as well. Or Torrey Horton, just the consistency and the reliability of what I think he can be. Maybe warrants being a little bit earlier in round 3 than maybe a mid-round 3 to round 4 selection. In terms of tier 4 guys that maybe should be in my tier 3, in terms of guys that I think could sneak in the 4th round of the NFL draft, I think Elijah Badger out of Florida, Nick Nash out of San Jose State, Pat Bryant out of Illinois, or Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas would be the 4 guys for very different reasons. Nick Nash is still that learning curve and development that he might be a much better wide receiver 2 years from now as he continues to get more comfortable playing wide receiver. Isaac Tesla, I think a lot of raw physical traits, still a lot of refinement needed, but he's a guy that I think his best ball is still ahead of him. Pat Bryant fills a very particular role, but you might need a guy who could stretch the field in terms of a bigger bodied guy, not a speed guy, but a guy who can win vertically down the field at the catch point with his size and frame. And then Elijah Badger offers that. There's a lot to like about Badger, very similar to Dominic Lovett. I think Lovett's a little bit smaller, but more explosive. But Badger, a good athlete in his own right, can win from inside the slot as well. And then if there was one guy in my last tier that I would say maybe could go up a tier, I would say it's Arian Smith, just because of the elite speed that he possesses out of Georgia. If I was going to pick two, I would say Jordan Watkins out of Ole Miss could be another guy that maybe can jump up a tier as well. So there are my wide receiver tiers and ranks, ranked from 1 to, 55 here, broken down into my 5 tiers. Guys I think could jump up from one tier into a next as well. If we spin this over now to conclude the TierBuster series to the tight ends, so let's jump right into it. This tight end class as a whole, I think is a very good tight end class. I think we got 4 guys that I absolutely love. We got 2 other guys that I think are in the top 100 mix. And then we got some interesting guys on day 3 as well. So let's start up my tiers. Round 1 is tier 1 is potential first round selections in the NFL draft, mid to late round 1 or early round 2 dynasty rookie picks. I think with both of these guys, we're talking mid to late round 1. Capability to be a complete tight end or create mismatches regularly as a pass catcher. Guys who I think fall into that tier for me are just 2 guys in my tier 1, and that is Tyler Warren out of Penn State and Colston Loveland out of Michigan. Right now, I have Loveland as like my 1A, Tyler Warren as my 1B. I think they're both going in the top 15 picks. Loveland is going to be more in terms of his play style to a guy like Travis Kelce or Trey McBride. Can do a lot with him in terms of his athleticism, his route running chops, his separation ability, his yak ability after the catch, attacking the seam. That's Colston Loveland. Tyler Warren, size and frame is much more like on the Gronkowski type of things. Obviously, I'm not saying he's going to be Rob Gronkowski, arguably the greatest tight end of all time. But Tyler Warren, a lot of versatility to his game. We saw him do the Wildcat stuff. We saw him passing the football. We've seen him attack the seam. We've seen him, lined up as a big wide receiver or a big slot. There's a lot of different things you can do with Tyler Warren, but for his size and frame, he's got good athleticism, play strength, route running ability, a lot to like about Warren's game. I do think Loveland is a more dynamic pass catcher right now, but Warren's a more complete player. If we take this to my tier 2, my tier 2 is guys that are made up of round 2 or round 3 selections in the NFL draft. We think these are mid to late round 2 to early round 3 dynasty rookie picks. If they're good receiving tight ends, possess several above average to good or very good traits to contribute immediately to the passing game and be at least adequate as a blocker in space, or displays at least functional receiving skills and is a great to elite blocker. In this thing, 4 tight ends in this tier for me, but it really separates very succinctly for me. Mason Taylor out of LSU and Elijah Arroyo would be my clear tier 2A. These are the guys that I think are top 50 pick worthy. Mason Taylor, to me, is much closer to Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren than Harold Fannin and Terrence Ferguson. My other 2 guys in this tier are to Mason Taylor in terms of my evaluation. So Mason Taylor out of LSU, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami, Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green, and Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon are the 4 tight ends that make up my tier 2. Taylor and Arroyo, to me, are top 40 to top 50 players. Fannin and Ferguson are more mid to late round 3 type players. And if they fall out of day 2, I wouldn't even be stunned. So there is a pretty big gap. To me, Taylor and Arroyo are closer to Loveland and Warren than they are Harold Fannin and Terrence Ferguson. But they're all grouped in this tier because we have all of day 2 kind of together here. But I love Mason Taylor's game. I think he can be a functional blocker. I think he's got the size, athleticism, and the want to be functional there. But I think he's a really good athlete. He can create separation. He can attack the seam. You can do a lot of different things with Mason Taylor. If you can't get Colston Loveland in round 1, I think you could take Mason Taylor somewhere in round 2, and you can get a very comparable player in terms of what he can bring. I still think Mason Taylor's best play is ahead of him. I think the elite wide receivers at LSU and the scheme kind of held him back. Daniel Jeremiah just put out his updated top 50. He has Mason Taylor as his 32nd best player. So he is basically right in lockstep with me. That's kind of, if I was making an overall big board, I don't think Mason Taylor would be out of my top 40. He would probably be in that 32 to 40 range. That's how high I think of Mason Taylor. Elijah Arroyo would be another guy I think is a top 50 player. I don't think he's early round 2. I think Mason Taylor is early round 2. I think Elijah Arroyo should be mid round 2. To me, there is a lot to like about his game. He's not as explosive an athlete as a guy like Evan Ingram was, but I think that's how he's going to win at the next level. He's a better blocker than Evan Ingram, but the athleticism, the body type, I think is very similar to Evan Ingram. But I do think he's a better blocker. He's got more upside to become a better blocker and a more complete tight end. Obviously, a lot of durability and injury concerns in his past, but I think Arroyo is a guy doesn't have that Evan Ingram type athleticism or speed, but stylistically how a team could use him, I think is comparable, but Arroyo does offer a little bit more better in terms of a blocker in space. Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green and Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. I think Ferguson is a late round 3 type pick. I think he just sneaks in. I think he's a more athletic version of a guy like Dalton Schultz. So I think he could be a nice quality starting tight end in the National Football League. I don't think there's a high ceiling there, but I think he offers enough in terms of athleticism, blocking in space, could hold up a little bit in line, that he's an intriguing player. And then Harold Fannin is one of the toughest evals in this draft class. Obviously, the production was elite. The athleticism, not very good in terms of what you want for a guy who's 6'4" at his measurements. But we saw Isaiah Likely test poorly, but just be a really good productive college player and then show that he can be a good NFL player. I think that's what teams are banking on with Harold Fannin Jr. His body control and ball skills at the catch point. He creates late separation. He's really good after the catch in terms of picking up extra yards and his yak and rack ability. So there's enough to like about his game. I think he's more like Chigakonkwo, but a better version of that. Obviously, with much better college production and not as good of an athlete. But in terms of the size and frame, to me, that's more of a comp. But I think he could be like Isaiah Likely, part Chigakonkwo. So I'm intrigued by him, but I don't think he's a good athlete. And that concerns me a little bit for what he's going to be asked to do at the next level. But I could see a team somewhere late round 3, like with Ferguson, taking a stab on Harold Fannin Jr. If we take this to my third tier at the tight ends, these are round 4, round 5 selections in the NFL draft. These are round 3 to round 4 dynasty rookie picks. If they're receiving tight ends, possess several average to above average traits to contribute in the passing game and adequate or functional as a blocker, or at least adequate to functional receiving ability, but above average to good blocking capabilities. In this tier, a couple interesting names: Gunnar Helm out of Texas, Thomas Fidone II out of Nebraska, Jake Bridenstool out of Clemson, Oronde Gatson II out of Syracuse, Joshua Simon out of South Carolina, Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame, and Luke Lachey out of Iowa. Gunnar Helm looked like he was ticketed for day 2. Then the combine happened. Who knows? Didn't run as pro day. Was the poor 40 time 100% attributed to him falling out of the gate and spraining his ankle? Maybe, but it's hard to know at this point. So for me, a guy who I thought prior to the combine and the athletic testing, I would have said he would have been maybe my number 5 or number 6 tight end, either ahead of Fannin or right after Fannin, but before Ferguson. For the unknown, because athleticism is very important at the tight end position, I moved them down from my tier 2 to the top of my tier 3. But on film, I'm still a fan of his game. I think he finds ways to get open. He finds the ability to separate. He's good at finding soft spots and zones. There's a lot to like about Gunnar Helm, productive player last year as well. Thomas Fidone II, very interesting player, good size and frame. Very good athleticism, tested really well. The pre-draft process has been very kind to him. He has rode that momentum. I think he should be an early round 4 pick. We'll see if an NFL team believes that, but I'm intrigued by Fidone. I could see him being a day 3 guy who emerges into a starter down the line. Jake Bridenstool out of Clemson, really good receiving tight end. Was surprised he only tested as an average athlete, which is some concerns because his size and frame and the slenderness of it doesn't really profile as a guy who's going to hold up much in line. So he's more of a receiving tight end, more possession-based, but more of a receiving tight end, but doesn't have the athleticism you ideally like to see when you're talking about mostly a pass-catching only guy. So that's a little bit of a concern there, but I do like Bridenstool's game. Oronde Gatson II, former wide receiver, similar to Bridenstool. Receiving is his calling card, but he's not an elite athlete. So that opens up an area for some concern, but I do like their receiving capabilities enough, which is why I kept Bridenstool and Gatson in my tier 3 as a guy who I think is warranted going somewhere on round 4, round 5. Joshua Simon out of South Carolina tested out as a really, really good athlete. I think there's some untapped upside there. The athleticism, he's an interesting player. A lot of pass catching savviness to his game as well. I think Simon could be a guy who goes somewhere in round 5, gets a chance to materialize into a part-time tight end player, really intriguing receiving skills as a weapon from the tight end position as part of like a multiple tight end team. Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame and Luke Lachey out of Notre Dame in Iowa. Those are guys that once upon a time I thought maybe we're going to be on that round 3, round 4 border. Now I think they're more in that round 4, round 5 border. But I do think there's some upside to both of these players. They're more prototypical in terms of their size and frame. They could hold up in line, especially Evans, but they do have receiving capabilities as well. But they're not prototypical receiving tight ends like Bryn Stuller Gatson profile as. They're more of guys who I think their size and frame say more in line, but do have the capabilities to be a combo guy where they can play in line, but they could also be a weapon in terms of their receiving capabilities. I think both of them could really materialize nicely into tight end 2s at the next level and could be had somewhere in the early portion of day 3 in either round 4 or round 5. And then tier 4 at the tight end position are guys that we think are late round, whether they're round 6 or round 7 or priority free agents in the NFL draft. In terms of dynasty rookie drafts, we're talking late rounds or watch lists. They're depth players, maybe tight end 3s who can maybe some can materialize into tight end 2s down the line, possess some average traits that can contribute in the passing game or as a blocker. Guys who make up my tier 4 at the tight end position. Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech, Gavin Bartholomew out of Pittsburgh, Malachi Matevo out of UCLA, Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech, C.D. Dipre out of Alabama, Caden Preetscorn out of Ole Miss, Brand Keithy out of Utah, Bryson Nesbitt out of North Carolina, and Benjamin Urosek out of Georgia. Conyers is a really interesting guy. At the size and frame he possesses, he tested out as a really good athlete. So I could see a team looking at Conyers as an H-back, fullback, move tight end, play him a little bit in line, a jack-of-all-trades type player. So I could see Conyers going a little bit higher in the late rounds because of his versatility that he offers. Bartholomew out of Pittsburgh, another guy you can do a variety of different things with. Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech is one of the best blocking tight ends in this class. So if you're looking for a guy who could be a tight end 2, but predominantly a blocker, some team might have Jackson Hawes as a round 4, round 5 grade instead of like a round 5, round 6 grade because of what he brings to the table. So I could see him going round 4, round 5 instead of round 6, round 7 where I have him ranked. CJ Dipre out of Alabama, another guy who I think teams are going to be intrigued with in terms of tight end 3, can block, can play in line, but it's got some ability to be at least a fallback pass option as well. Brand Keith feels like he's been at Utah forever. Really good receiving tight end. Missed a lot of time due to injuries. And then rounding it out, Bryson Nesbitt and Benjamin Urosek, both more pass catchers than complete tight ends, but really not good athletes, which is what has them down there. Bad athletes and a receiving only profile. It's hard to really stick in the NFL with those two things. In terms of guys that if I make any moves in my tiers, for me, it would be potentially moving Mason Taylor into tier 1. I have said that I think he's much closer to Loveland and Warren than guys like Fannin and Ferguson are to him. So I could see a scenario where I move Mason Taylor into my tier 1 and think he's a top 32 player in this class. Because if he's not in top 32, he is on the doorstep for me. I'd probably say right now, if I made that list, he's probably somewhere in that 35 to 40 range. But like I said, Darren Jeremiah, 32. So there's a lot of love out there for Mason Taylor. If I was going to take one guy from tier 3 and bump him up to tier 2, if Gunnar Helm gets an opportunity to run in the final couple of weeks here of NFL draft prep and he tests out as an average or above average athlete, he'd go right back into tier 2 for me. What's only holding him back is he a really poor athlete? And that would be concerning for me. And then I mentioned it, if I'm taking one guy from my tier 4 in terms of that round 6, round 7 range, it's Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech. I could easily move him into my tier 4 and kind of put him in that round 4, round 5 draft range because I think there's a lot of versatility to Conyers' game to do a lot of different things in terms of, like I said, fullback, H-back, tight end, inline, move tight end, detached. Conyers offers a lot of versatility in that regards, and NFL teams love that from their tight ends. So there it is, guys. My detailed wide receiver tiers and rankings, my detailed tight end tiers and rankings. If you're enjoying this, please listen to the last 2 shows, the quarterback tiers, the running back tiers, and then get over to the website, S2S Football, fastest and easiest way to get there. Check out our premium content. It's only $9.99. please, if you've bought it in the past, please consider helping us out and purchasing it again. If you've never purchased it, but you've been a long-time listener over my 676 episodes, maybe see if you can check it out for $9.99. Everything that we get from those sales literally goes right back into company just to keeping us afloat. Subscriptions, server fees, website fees, just to keep the process going here. So if you've been a long-time listener but never purchased it, please consider purchasing it out and helping us. We're talking 2 cups of coffee here. If you're new, just kind of found Saturday, Sunday over the last couple months, please consider checking it out. $9.99. You get access to the scouting notebook, 100 detailed profiles from the offensive skill players, strengths, functional areas, developmental areas, how they win, NFL role, fantasy spin. You get the rankings notebook. It has so many different rankings, draft rankings, tiered rankings. It'll have our Dynasty rookie rankings coming out the week of the NFL draft. We got last year's Dynasty rookie rankings as they enter year 2. We have our Devy rankings. We have our positional overall Dynasty rankings, which will be fully updated following the NFL draft. I'll finally go through it. Free agency draft. I kind of wait. I have a lot going on here, so I kind of wait to free agency and the NFL draft concludes before I do one massive rankings update to get people ready for their off seasons in their dynasty leagues, or maybe if they're doing new startup dynasty leagues, really valuable there. And then we're talking like 2 weeks away, the draft projections notebook launches. It's my favorite notebook. It's the one I literally spend endless amounts of hours, almost 400 players in there, snapshot of how they win and their developmental areas, their combine testing or pro day testing, their combine measurements, tiers for every position, offense and defense, big boards for projected top 32, projected top 100, and projecting every single pick in the NFL draft. This is not based on my rankings. This is based on the guys who I think are the best in the industry, merging them together to give you a snapshot of how my thoughts are there in terms of their developmental areas and how they win. Those are my takes. But how I have them ranked is based on how I expect them to come off the board from everything I'm hearing, reading, listening from the best in the industry. I'm not just going to some consensus big board site that has 100 different evaluators. 100 different evaluators is not what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for the best of the best in terms of getting their insight information, putting it all together, trying to project how we expect it to go. We have done an amazing job over the last couple of years projecting the prospects to come off the board in round 1, the top 100, and every single pick in the NFL draft. We're talking 27 to 30 in round 1. We're talking 84 to 85, 83 to 87 players in the top 100. We're talking 215 to 225 in terms of the entire NFL draft as well. It's endless amounts of hours. It is the best resource to have open on your desktop during NFL draft weekend. I am constantly highlighting on the tabs in terms of the projected big boards and how we expect it to go, and on the positional tabs, constantly keeping it updated, highlighting in yellow when a player is selected so you can quickly look at it and see who the best available players are left. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter or the contact info at the top of the Saturday to Sunday page. So, on behalf of our sound tech engineer, David Nakano, and myself, thank you for joining us, and we look forward next time taking you from Saturday to Sunday.